Hello, my name is Stephanie Nicolo, and I'm the Acting Gallery Manager at the Aurora Cultural Center. I'm joined today by curator of the exhibition, The Conversation, 17 Artists Join, physically on display in the center's temporary art gallery on the second floor of the Aurora Town Hall, and online in our website gallery at auroraculturalcenter.ca from August 4th to October 23rd. We've come together digitally for a discussion on the concept of what is an art catalog. I welcome you, the audience, and thank you, Carmel, for joining me for this chat. Carmel, you're an artist, curator, and educator, and I'm excited to have your insight on this topic. So let's get right into it, real simple. What is an art catalog?
Well, an art catalog, it's a book created to be supportive of a physical exhibition, or it could be virtual these days, but it is a book that people can take home with them, and it doesn't replace the actual gallery exhibition. It's very important that people are aware of that. Being as an artist myself, I want people into the exhibition to actually physically see those pieces and the size of them and how they're made, and look very closely. A photographic representation in the catalog doesn't replace that in any way. Yeah, very important. So it is something that it's an addendum to the exhibition.
So you just mentioned the photography element. What other pieces could be found or would be expected to be found in a catalog?
Oh, there'd be some writing. Usually you have, well, the curator would write something about the ideas behind the show, what comes together. Aurora Cultural, an art catalog, Aurora Cultural Center would write about it, and how they feel putting it together, especially in this case under pandemic conditions. I think it's really important. And there also could be somebody else who's key to the, even a critic, somebody who knows about art wants to look at it, so they could do their version, which is always a good idea.
As a separate version, or would be included inside the same catalog?
Oh, it'd be included. You'd ask them to, view the exhibition, even if it were a virtual viewing, and write something about it from their perspective. Because one thing about art is there's so many perspectives, different perspectives on, what's in front of you.
And what would be the benefit for to having a catalog for the audience as well as the artists?
For artists, it is good to document where you've been, what you've done. It adds to your, I'll use the word resume of background information about your work. For general public, they like to have catalogs to look at again and again. There's kind of like coffee table books, because most catalogs are beautiful. The other thing that's important is historically looking back. I know when you produce a catalog, most of the time you do an ISBN coding on it with registering it. And that's always, there's a copy or two held up in the National Library in Canada, and they keep that. And when we look back, 50 years from now, and they want to know what went on in the Aurora Cultural Center, or what went on with, an artist like Ernestine Tehedel, they will go in there, and historically that's important. They can go and see.
So an archive for the exhibition.
It is.
And the artists.
Yeah, very important.
Is there a sense of like you have to have the catalog created in a certain way because this is how art catalogs are created, or is there a variety of ways that catalogs can be presented?
If you have a group of artists, you'd have your introduction from the various people that I mentioned. And then you'd probably have a welcome message or something like that from your Aurora Cultural Center. You might have, because it's in the town hall, you might have kind of a map of where everything is, where the pieces are hanging, just in case it opens up physically. You'll have a list of the artists who are part of the show, and then you would go through their profiles. You might have bios, you might have biographies of the artist, you might have artist statements, and you would have samples of their work. And always with sculpture, because it's in the round or anything three-dimensional, you want to at least have two different views so that the work can be fully enjoyed.
Right, because you're experiencing a 3D piece in a 2D format.
Yeah.
So if I'm somebody who is just picking up a catalog for the very first time, do you recommend me reading it from cover to cover, or do I jump from an artist to an artist statement? Can I kind of go through a catalog? How would you suggest I read a catalog?
Well, again, I would say, first of all, look at the address where the exhibition is, if it's still on, and I would go there and see the work and then come back to the catalog. I don't think you can actually comprehend, or you definitely wouldn't dismiss a show because you don't like what you see in the catalog. You have to, you have to actually feel the real show. So if it's virtual, go onto the virtual site and have a look at the work, and look at it, twice at least, because I think that's worth it. I mean, Aurora has many versions of this exhibition. So, and then look at the catalog. The catalog is a good record then, and then you can read more about the artist and who they were and what they do and how they think.
I like those suggestions. It really brings a wholesome experience of an exhibition, of the artwork, because the artwork doesn't just exist in itself. It has an artist behind it. It has inspirations and theories behind it. So speaking directly about the exhibition, the conversation, do you have any specific questions of this particular exhibition? I know that you started developing the program with specific questions. Do you have any inspirations? Sorry, let me just ask that question again. Speaking directly about the conversation exhibition, specific questions were asked of the artists involved. Can you share some of your inspiration behind those questions that you asked the artists?
I did actually pull up some of the questions, and I'm just trying to find them. There we go. So, I'll use myself as an example, because it's easy. I can't say anything bad about myself, can I? I sent out around six questions to each of the artists, because one of the reasons for doing that is you can't just look at the name on the tag or on the wall or in the virtual format. You want to know more about the artist, and a lot of times it doesn't come out. People do these artist statements, or artists do these artist statements, and sometimes they are just too vague. They're not specific. It doesn't allow the viewers to get in and understand the gist of what they're really trying to do. They'll say things like, my kid could do that, at 2 years old or something. I want to know more about the artist. So, in my question to myself, and I may have used this for several of the artists, was, what stories or ideas do you weave into your work? And for me personally, almost every work, there's a story to it because I love stories and I want to tell them. And our visual language is part of that historic thing going way back to early times where stories were passed on and on. So that was one of the questions. How are you different from other contemporary artists? Once you have lived your life in art, you may be doing similar things. You may be doing watercolor or acrylic painting, or you might be doing glass work or something, but you've got differences, directions,
Right.
influences that affect you more. So I want to know that about an artist. I asked, what do you want viewers to take away from exposure to your work? And for me, I want them to, I'm very experimental, and I want them to feel that sense of, yeah, I could do artwork too. I really like that because I think everybody can do creative.
Like your artwork yourself, you're saying, is almost like an invitation to create more.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing. I asked many of the artists, do they create for a specific audience? And I found that an interesting question because there are artists who deliver their artwork mainly to sell. And there's nothing wrong with that because, it can be a good thing. But there are many artists, and I'm one of them, that I don't really think about the audience as much, although, yes, I want an audience, but I want a varied audience. I want people to respond in their own personal ways. So I don't create for a specific audience. The next question I asked of myself was, do you express specific emotions through this work? Yes, that's very important. In a lot of my work, I do have a message in the pieces. I do have something that I want to come out. And I also ask most of the artists about the influences in their life. I said, who is the person who influenced, the major person who impacted your career as an artist? For me, it was my mother. My brother too, one of my brothers.
I'm sure he had influence on it too, yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely, no, his positive response, he's not alive now, but his positive response to it encouraged me. But my mother was nonstop creative right till maybe a month before she died. She just, really so much so. And she led by example. She was a worker. So that's the kind of thing. And I asked that type of questioning to many of the artists.
So that must be some really, sorry, just going to turn that off. I'm gonna edit that out too. The materials that you are collecting, these stories, this is something that we're going to be discovering within the Conversations catalog. And I'm wondering, you collect all this information. Were you surprised, delighted, or otherwise when putting the material together? Did you come across a story or response that caught you off guard or charmed you a bit?
Oh yeah, I did, but I've got to zero in on who it was. But yeah, yes, there were several that, Dorsey James, for example. I didn't know a lot about. I discovered so much about him, and yet I've known him. He's a OSA member. He's an artist in Pickering. He's very well known for his big wood sculptures, very large ones, too large to fit inside the room of Aurora at the town hall. But the stories that he weaves into his work are fascinating, biblical ones he learned from his mother, and that was really important. Lynn McElbride has stories within her. Well, they all did. They all did.
Right.
And they were wonderful. Lynn Bishop, and on the collaborative piece with her husband Tom Loach, just the way that all came about, you know, knocking down an old house that had all those memories within it and building a new house,
Mhm.
you know, and that whole thing. So yeah, I was moved by the stories, and it became very important that that be part of the catalog, because it does allow you much more inside the head of the artist.
Right. This
Yeah.
is a good marketing piece. You know, the audience watching this, they'll have to go and read the catalog, uh, because we're gonna giving little tidbits of these stories. But that's the point of the catalog, really, to
Yeah.
collect this and then present it so that you can come back to these stories over and over again, or the information going back and back.
Yeah, because the views, you know, you can look at that, and then you could go online and look at the piece again, and then you start to see, um, you know, what's happening. And that's why in the images of Dorsey's sculpture, you have to get almost your nose right up against it, so against the screen, to see the intricacies of his carving, because
And the
there's
wood.
stories. Yeah, yeah, there's stories there.
Well, this is a good point for our audience today. Please check out the website, auroraculturalcenter.ca, and visit the exhibition. There's a 3D map, so that we can, you know, you can have the catalog and then see these pieces in 3D. And the reason why we're encouraging you to go to the 3D map and to the online gallery is because we've been limited because of the pandemic. In terms of the catalog, did you find that the pandemic affected the ability to bring the material together, or were you able to utilize the digital tools to collect your conversations from the artists?
Yeah, in all cases, the actual conversations came to me, you know, by email or
Mm.
some sort. Um, and I haven't got any more answer on that one. You might have to cut that part.
Yeah, we got the material.
Yeah.
So on closing, what would you say if the key to a catalog, like what is the most important element of an art catalog for to take away from this conversation?
Good design. um, it actually, the catalog is on its own a work of art. It's a memory. It's history. It is, yeah, it's important to be respected as part of the exhibition. I really, you know, I was really hoping we'd have a printed copy, but yeah, maybe in the future.
Right? Maybe in the future. Well, I'm really appreciated to have this conversation with you, to just dive into the description of an art catalog and why is it important for exhibitions, specifically art exhibitions, and how it's related to the conversation, the exhibition. Really looking forward to reading in depth all those stories that you've mentioned are coming from the 17 artists who joined you in conversation. And today I will conclude our conversation about the catalogs. To our audience, thank you for joining us and hope to talk to you soon.